What's up, gang? Happy Monday and welcome back to the stream. I hope you guys all had the most phenomenally wonderful weekend. I finally got several full nights of sleep in a row after having a sick dog all week last week, which was a powerful reminder that I'm probably just not quite ready to tackle the sleep deprivation of parenthood anytime in the next few years. So I'm glad I had that rude awakening before my wedding in several months. Excited to be fully rested, back on the grind, having a great day with all of you guys. It is a Monday and it feels like a Monday, but it's like a productive, positive, happy Monday around here at my house, and I hope you guys are feeling exactly the same way at your house or your jobs or wherever you happen to be watching from as we speak right now. It is 3:00 p.m. Eastern time, and we are live on YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, Getter, and of course to our locals community for a super interesting conversation about food and specifically the meat industry. Coincidentally, we've talked about food quite a bit on the live stream lately, and it's funny because I would consider myself to be a bit of a foodie. Like, I love going out to restaurants and I love learning new recipes, and my fiance surprised me with a really fun cooking class the other day, which was such a fun date night, by the way. If you are looking for something to make your fiance or girlfriend or wife very, very happy, you guys should surprise her with a cooking class. We just did one at Sur La Table, which was really fun, and made homemade pasta, and it was great, and we had such a fun time doing it. But as much as I love food, I wouldn't necessarily consider myself to be a food expert. I studied biomedical sciences in college in Colorado State University's program for my undergraduate degree, and then I studied biomedical sciences policy and advocacy for my graduate degree in Washington, D.C. at Georgetown. So I was always on the pre-med track and biological sciences, but I never really learned too much about nutrition. I didn't even take a nutrition class in college. I would not consider myself to be the food expert or even an expert in the agriculture industry, even though I grew up somewhat around animals as a kid. But I'm finding ourselves coming back more and more and more to this topic at your guys' request, because our food is one of the easiest ways that the people in positions of power have opportunities to have control over us and to influence our individual health at the individual level, our family's health, the health of our communities, and just culture and society at large in so many surprising ways that I don't think we've really thought about consciously until the last several years since 2020, at least in the modern sense or in my lifetime. So the more food becomes important as it comes to how we nourish ourselves, what our individual health looks like, what the community health of the people surrounding us looks like, and how we can have responsibility and jurisdiction over our own lives free from interference or control by other people, the more important it is for us to be aware and educated about what we are putting in our bodies, where that food is coming from, how we can encourage our own nutrition and health, and how maybe sometimes we need to stop listening to the health experts that are consuming all of our media and have the loudest microphones in our society. So we're talking food today. I hope you're not super hungry, because we will be talking about meat, and it made me really hungry talking about this throughout the day, doing some research, and I will be having a fat Good Rancher's steak for dinner as a reward for this conversation with all of you guys. But I'm super excited to see all of you here, and I hope you learned something really interesting and fun from our conversation today. We're going to kick things off by saying hello to everybody in our live chat as usual. So if you haven't already introduced yourself and let us know where you're watching from, do so over there in the chat so we can say hello to you and welcome you into our little community in our corner of the internet. As you guys are doing that, I have a couple things I want to share with you. First and foremost, I am so excited to see our communities continue to grow. We're seeing new followers every single day on platforms like Rumble and Getter, which is phenomenal. On YouTube, we're starting to see tons of new subscribers all over the place. We've gained several thousand subscribers in the last month, which I'm very excited about because it takes forever to grow on YouTube, but we are getting really, really close to 20,000 subs already, and it is a grind, but one that we are proud to put on for you guys. And of course, tons of new followers on Instagram and TikTok. So if you guys are joining us from over there, welcome. And we are hopefully bringing the stream to you on those platforms very, very soon with the rollout of RTMP streaming. So first of all, thank you if you are here and you have already subscribed. I am a totally independent content creator, which means I sit in the spare bedroom of my apartment in my streaming setup every single day and I say what I mean. Nobody is buying me off to say any of these things. I'm trying to bring a sense of authenticity back into media, especially with just chatting and cultural and political conversations that desperately needs to be there. And all of that is thanks to you guys and your help in growing these channels. So if you haven't already, please do me a huge favor and hit the like button on this stream to help us get picked up in the algorithm. That might look like a little thumbs up or it could look like a heart button. Make sure you ring the notification bell so that you always know when we are going live. And most importantly, wherever you are watching, smash that follow or subscribe button to make sure you are helping us grow our community. We're going to say hi to some people very, very quickly here in our chat, but first and foremost, want to thank our sponsor who helps make this live stream financially possible for me to be my full-time job. Our friends over at Public Square, who we're going to mention a little bit later in the stream as well, are today's sponsor. If you guys don't already know, Public Square is a network of more than 65,000 small businesses that share your values here in the United States of America. They are all pro-life, pro-family, and pro-freedom, and they are coming internationally to you very, very soon if you guys are watching from another country, which is super exciting. All kinds of businesses, everything you can possibly imagine, from food being delivered to your house, which again we'll cover in just a little bit, to the clothes that you wear or makeup and skincare, even people to help you do your taxes, and even more are all present on Public Square. If you are a small business owner of any kind, you need to add your business to Public Square. So many of you guys already have and are seeing so many rewards of the growth of your consumer base. And if you're looking to replace where you spend your money with businesses that share your values, Public Square is the only and best place that you need to go to find that out. You can check out their website at publicsq.com or download their app on the Apple App Store or Google Play using the link that I just dropped in our live chat, and you can add your small business that way there as well, which again, you guys absolutely 100,000% need to be doing in order to grow your business and your community. All right, let's say hi to some people. Kicking things off over on YouTube, Total Package, Daloon, and Mitch are watching. We've got DJB and Marky watching, both saying, I love eating meat and I will always eat meat. Well, maybe not for long if the people in positions of power have their way, but I too will never be able to let go of meat. I am a meat eater. I love a good steak, a good chicken breast. Oh yeah, it's all good. I will never be able to get rid of that like you guys. We've got Sabrav and Reed watching. Chris is watching. We've got Adathep and Nintendo Fan watching. Nintendo Fan says, if meat ever becomes illegal, I will just continue to eat it and IDGAF if I get arrested. Classic. We love to see it. That's what we like to call based. OD, Amy, and Marnus are here. We've got Ashton and Christopher watching. Tuco, Gator, Northern Wanderer are joining us. And Maddie says, hey, just want to say you're great. Thanks, Maddie. You guys are great. And I love you all so much. Over on Rumble, we've got TZ Patriot, John, and Chris watching. Glock Fanboy, Sarah Olive, and Tynes are kicking things off for us in our chat. We love to see you guys continue to use that feature over on Rumble. On Getter, Nitty Witty, Prometheus, and more are watching. Prometheus is watching from Germany. So very cool. Good to see you. And we love seeing our international community continue to grow. And finally, over on Locals, the whole gang is back. African Warlord, Alex Padron, back from your trip to DC, which we love to see. M-Rock, Daniel Maynard. You guys are all here and ready for a great conversation to kick off our Monday. I want to just share this as a reminder really quick before we invite in my friend Ben Spell, who is the founder and CEO of Good Ranchers. If you've never heard of Good Ranchers, don't you worry. You're going to learn all about it here by the end of the stream. He's going to be joining us in just a few minutes. But before we do that, I want to give you guys just a brief overview in case you didn't see us talk about this on the stream a few weeks ago. I guess months now, which is crazy. Time is just absolutely flying. And happy October, by the way. We're going to have all kinds of October fun, spooky season things coming to you in the next few weeks. But speaking of spooky, a few months ago in June, the United States FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, and the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the USDA, approved for the very first time ever the idea of lab-grown meat being approved for sale in the United States of America. What the heck does that mean? Because we've never seen something like that before. Lab-grown meat is going to be actual meat cells that are cultivated from stem cells in a laboratory, and they are going to be sold in grocery stores and available at restaurants sooner rather than later in San Francisco and Washington, D.C., but across the country, thanks to a few companies, namely Good Meat and Upside Foods. One of the primary investors of these companies happens to be Bill Gates, just as a little side note, being approved to sell and cultivate lab-grown meat on the U.S. food market. This happened on end of June, so like late June. I think it was June 25th or something. The U.S. Department of Agriculture granted its first ever approval of cell-cultured meat, meaning they're going to take stem cells, cultivate them into muscle and meat cells and fat cells in a laboratory, in petri dishes, essentially, in biochambers, and then sell them to you as if you were buying a chicken breast or a chicken thigh. This is all for chicken so far, at the grocery store or at a restaurant. It's incredibly unclear whether or not there will be any labeling required for you to tell if you are buying a chicken piece of meat that was harvested from a real chicken or a chicken piece of meat that was cultivated in a laboratory, which is incredibly scary in and of itself. But this approval came less than 1 year after the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, said that it was clear for us to eat lab-grown meat, that it was safe to eat, and recognizes a major milestone for the burgeoning cultured meat industry. But it doesn't mean lab-grown steaks will be hitting supermarket shelves tomorrow. For now, both companies have been given the go-ahead to sell strictly chicken products at a handful of select restaurants. They will need additional approval to market cell-cultivated beef, pork, or seafood. Just as a litmus test here for what this actually looks like from a cultural perspective, about 90% of our population regularly eats meat, but largely because of media influence and what the loudest and most powerful voices in society have to say, a growing number of Americans harbor concerns about the environmental impact of the meat industry. Of course, what they don't want you to know is that lab-grown meat, according to some studies from the University of California system, has a 25 times higher potential for environmental disaster and greenhouse gas emissions and carbon emissions into the environment. But they won't tell you that. They won't say that they're concerned about that. They're only going to say that they are concerned about the meat industry as we know it. So this cultured meat idea and the lab-grown meat idea is not just a far-off theoretical reality or a dream or an idea that a handful of scientists might have. This is actually hitting consumers in the United States very, very soon, at least starting at a few restaurants, likely then at grocery stores and supermarkets, and then expanding to other kinds of meat than just chicken. Jason is reminding us in our YouTube chat that Bill Gates has been working on this for years, and the companies that have received this preliminary approval have been working on trying to get this approval for literally years. They have spent so long trying to get this approved by the government as safe to eat, which I'm sure you can imagine in the United States is a wholly different process if you are watching from another country than what you might consider safe to eat. Most of the things that are completely illegal and undigestible, according to scientists in Europe, for example, are totally approved to eat in the American food market, which just blows your mind. But it just feels incredibly odd, right? It feels off, and it feels very tinfoil hat conspiracy theory to me when at the same time, Bill Gates is one of the primary investors into one of two companies, that's it, that receives the approval to start selling lab-grown meat, so he stands to make a profit from this. He also happens to be an individual that is speaking out in droves against the meat industry, largely because of the environmental impact, and is buying millions upon millions of acres of farmland to try to make sure that the regular actual agriculture meat industry cannot operate as normal in the United States of America. The entire thing just feels so bizarre to me, and it already felt bizarre how much we were attacking meat when we were instituting plant-based alternatives like Beyond Burgers or the Impossible Burger, and I have a lot of problems with those that we'll cover here in just a second, but to actually start growing meat that we will consume in petri dishes, in a laboratory, in these bio chambers, rather than just promoting actual sustainable and safely conducted agriculture, feels like a step in the complete wrong direction if we are serious about promoting individual health, human health, as well as health of the environment and actual sustainability. And there are many scientists that would wholeheartedly agree with me on that analysis. This obviously happened just a few months ago that lab-grown meat was approved for the first time in the United States of America for human consumption. But for years, scientists have been speaking out with their rightful concerns about the consumption of lab-grown meat being wildly unsafe for people and terrible for the environment. Alongside that, the Center for Food Safety published this 3 years ago, September 20th of 2020, asking if lab-grown meat was even healthy or safe to consume at all, well before actual approval was handed out to consume lab-grown meat. They call it a ton of different things: cultured or cell-based or cultivated, which we just saw in that Scientific American article. They called it cultivated meat or cultured meat. It's basically lab-grown meat. As you need to know, at the most basic level, it is a meat alternative made in a laboratory via animal cells and a cultured medium like sugars and salts or a fetal bovine serum. Several companies around the world are promoting this new technique as a way to cultivate meat alternatives that are supposedly cleaner and safer than traditional meat. At the time this was published in September of 2020, there were 29 companies planning to bring lab-grown meat to market in the form of chicken, beef, pork, seafood, pet food, and beyond. A handful of these companies we know have started to receive approval for doing this, but there are many, many others, dozens more that are planning to roll out lab-grown meat onto the American agriculture industry and our food consumption industry as soon as they can possibly get approval. All these scientists for the Center for Food Safety start asking, is lab-cultured meat actually better for you? Maybe not, for several reasons. One of, I don't know, somewhat convincing reasons that I feel like we should be paying attention to in society, but we're just glossing over very conveniently in the midst of this conversation, is that scientists are concerned consuming lab-grown meat involves the genetic engineering of cells and therefore might impact your body's ability to turn off and on tumor suppressing genes if and when you start growing tumors in your body. In other words, consuming lab-grown meat, some scientists are concerned, might lead to rampant cancerous growth in your body that you will be unable to effectively fight because you turned off the gene to start fighting cancer in your body when tumors start to grow. The Center for Food Safety says of particular concern is the genetic engineering of cells and their potential cancer-promoting properties. To be able to better assess whether the products are being produced by methods that involve genetic engineering and use genetic constructs that might encourage cancer cells, we need more information on how the cells are engineered and how they are kept growing. Most of the companies involved in this are claiming this information is confidential and a business secret. Gee, I wonder why these companies would not want to institute transparency on how their cells are growing and exactly what methods they are using to grow these stem cells in perpetuity to cultivate meat. It's a business secret. Sure sounds like a business secret if you have a vested interest with most of your primary investors on both the food side and the pharmaceutical side. I don't know, just a thought. Bill Gates. These companies are not yet patenting their production processes wherein this information would be more fully disclosed. So without a patent, we have no idea if this is even happening. Some suggest that the production will follow the FDA cell culture guidelines, but the FDA's cell culture guidelines do not apply to this because they are not designed for food. In addition to potentially limiting your body's ability to fight cancer, lab-grown meat is not actually always culture or cruelty free. To produce lab-grown meat, you have to extract animal cells from living animals. This is typically done via biopsy, which if you've ever had a biopsy for whatever reason, it's a very painful and uncomfortable procedure that uses large needles. If a company could scale up with this method, it would require a consistent supply of real-life animals from which to acquire cells and innumerable painful extractions. To make the cell-based product more consistent, the producer may biopsy the same animal many times for the cells that growing meat requires. Growing animal cells also requires a growth medium. When lab-cultured meat production first began, companies depended on fetal bovine serum as a growth medium. Producing FBS involves extracting blood from the fetus of a pregnant cow when the cow is slaughtered. But yes, please tell me more about how this might be a viable and ethical, transparent option to replace the meat slaughtering industry, because we're trying to make sure that we save the animals, because the meat industry is just so evil and we could never imagine doing this to cows ever again. No, we will just be doing this to cows on a much larger scale in much more horrifying realities than raising an animal for slaughter, in my opinion. Involves literal actual torture instead of just raising an animal from a livestock perspective to actually just eat it. Given its high cost, the Food Safety Center says, it appears that FBS, fetal bovine serum, is usually only used during small-scale lab trials. Additionally, increasing production capacity using FBS comes with its own set of concerns. Even disregarding the insanely high cost of this, so I don't even know how much they're going to charge for their product, because I have no idea how they could recuperate all of the lost financial cost to making this happen. Non-genetically engineered animal muscle cells only proliferate or increase to a certain degree. In order to overcome this limitation, large companies such as Memphis Meats claim that they have found an FBS alternative that does not involve animals, along with an effective way to expand production. For Memphis Meats, this process involves the utilization of something called a bioreactor and the creation of immortal cell lines. That sounds horrifying. Let's figure out what that is. These companies are using a very large vessel for containing biological reactions and processes to implement a scaffold-based system to grow quote-unquote meat, which uses a specific structure for cells to grow on and around. The scaffolding helps the cells differentiate into a specific meat-like formation. Researchers cite using cornstarch fibers, plant skeletons, fungi, and gelatin as the scaffolding materials. Instead of animal muscle cell precursors, researchers have been using cultured stem cells. This distinction is important because extracted muscle cells will only proliferate to a certain extent. Companies are trying cultured stem cells as an alternative type of cell that could proliferate exponentially so that they could scale up production, blah, 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 blah. The stem cells still come from animals or animal embryos, but what differentiates is that in the scaffold-based system, the cells can be genetically engineered to proliferate indefinitely, which they definitely are not supposed to be able to do in the actual environment. What could possibly go wrong in consuming food based on this structure? These cells are otherwise known as pluripotent. If you forgot your high school biology class or you didn't take biology in college, pluripotent stem cells means that that type of stem cell could turn into any type of cell later on, or they could be totipotent, which creates every single kind of cell. This would greatly expand a company's capacity to make lab-cultured meat, but the methods by which companies make these cells come with human health and food safety ramifications. Going back specifically to the cancer side of things, and then I promise we'll move on because this is just terrifying in and of itself. If we scroll down here a little bit, the Center for Food Safety is very, very concerned about these pluripotent or totipotent stem cells being used for human consumptions. They say while these companies don't disclose much to the public about their processing methods, if anything, like they just told us above, their public patents reveal the creation of oncogenics or cancer-causing cells. A Memphis Meats, that's one of the companies, patent on the creation of modified pluripotent cell lines involves the activation or inactivation of various proteins responsible for tumor suppression. Another patent from a different company describes the utilization of growth factors as part of its growth medium. This process could promote the development of cancer-like cells in lab-cultured meat products, and it is possible that certain growth factors could be absorbed into the human bloodstream after digestion. In other words, the way that these products are being grown in a laboratory could, or could not, but it could cause all kinds of cancer-promoting issues in the human body if this is the type of food that you are consuming. And again, just as a reminder, this was being voiced very vocally from scientists on the issue 3 years ago. 3 years before the USDA ever approved lab-grown meat to be consumed by humans safely in the United States of America. So this is hardly new information. It's hardly breaking information. But it certainly is something that you will never hear corporate media talk about. You will never hear investors into these supposed green alternatives or safe or more healthy alternatives to meat ever mention. And you certainly will never hear some of the loudest voices in the food industry mention this, because even actual meat-based companies like Tyson are among these list of companies that are seeking approval for lab-grown meat anyway. So they want you to consume this new product, and they don't really care, at least at first blush, what happens to you in the process. Not only are we pushing lab-grown meat to this weird, freaky extent that should absolutely terrify you, though, we're also pushing plant-based alternatives to meat as a healthier or somehow better for the environment option that actually produces a lot more carbon emissions than the meat industry and certainly is not healthier for you. And I think at least in the last 5 to 10 years or so, we've seen that push ramp up to astronomical levels, to the point that most people in my generation probably do believe that meat is bad for you, where Beyond Burgers or Impossible Meat or egg alternatives like Just Egg are much healthier and much better for human consumption. But as much as we promote grocery stores like Whole Foods, which takes their name from consuming whole food ingredients, meaning foods that only have one ingredient, we don't seem to be following our own advice in promoting stores that have that name, because we aren't interested in consuming whole foods with only one ingredient. Instead, we would rather feed ourselves, instead of a hamburger, for example, something that has the longest ingredient list I've ever read. This is on the Beyond Meat website. The Beyond Burger, if you've ever heard of this, is a, what they say, plant-based burger that looks, cooks, and satisfies like beef. Look, they even have a little cow on the label, so I'm sure you would love to pick that up thinking it's actually meat. It has all the juicy, meaty deliciousness of a traditional burger, but comes with the upsides of a plant-based meat. And the way that this whole website is packaged, it's all green, it's super graphic and pretty. It says all of these fun little bubbles that seem super healthy. Plant-based protein, no GMOs, no gluten, no soy, it's kosher. That's so great. But then if you scroll down here to the ingredient list, it's like darn near impossible. I'm zooming in. Oh, it might not let me zoom in. Darn near impossible to decipher what actually is present in these ingredients. Water, pea protein, expeller pressed canola oil, which is seed oils, by the way, responsible for massive inflammation throughout the human body, refined coconut oil, rice protein, natural flavors, oh, I'm not counting, water, pea protein, canola oil, coconut oil, rice protein, natural flavor, dry yeast, cocoa butter, methyl cellulose, potato starch, salt, potassium chloride, beet juice color, apple extract, pomegranate concentrate, sunflower vinegar, lemon juice concentrate, and a bunch of vitamins and minerals. So we're talking about 20 plus ingredients in something that should have one ingredient, meat. That's it. And yet we're convincing ourselves this is a healthier alternative. Similarly, there's an egg substitute that's all vegan. It's called Just Egg. It comes in this cute little, well-packaged, very well-designed, great graphic design package at the grocery store. It has this cute little non-GMO label on the front. It looks super healthy. It looks clean. They say on their website that there's only 70 calories. That has to be healthy, right? Only 5 grams of fat. There's 5 grams of protein, only 1 gram of carbohydrates, and 0 milligrams of cholesterol, which has to be healthy, right? Until you start reading the ingredient list. Water, mung bean protein isolate, expeller pressed canola oil, seed oils again, dehydrated onion, gellan gum, natural carrot extractives for the color, natural flavors, natural turmeric extractives, potassium citrate, salt, sugar, tapioca syrup solids, tetrasodium pyrophosphate, transglutaminase, and niacin. So 15 ingredients where there should be one ingredient of eggs. And yet we are gaslighting ourselves, we are gaslighting the next generation, and we are gaslighting all of the people in positions of power to believe that this is a healthier alternative to meat. John says in our Rumble chat, natural flavor. Do they mean the natural flavor of beef? Yeah, one would think that. If you have to put natural flavor in your ingredient lists, I highly doubt it's really a natural product. And we could spend literally hours unpacking the insane reality of food labeling and food packaging in America, just how misleading a lot of that information is, how we don't really know most of the things that are in our food or how they were manufactured or how they were produced, and things that we would assume to be pretty safe to eat actually are very unsafe for us to eat. If you really want to go down the rabbit hole, go out of your way to start researching foods in America that we eat all the time that are illegal in other countries. But as Total Package is saying in our YouTube chat, an educated consumer is these companies and the people in power's worst nightmare. The truth is, the more research that I've done in my own life about what I'm eating, where things are coming from, what is a whole food with whole ingredients versus something with a huge long list that I can't even pronounce or understand what those mean, the more I've realized prioritizing what I put in my body is step one to make sure everything else in my life is lining up the way that I want it to. Just like taking responsibility to move your body every day, it is equally, if not more important, to prioritize what you are feeding yourself and what you are consuming, because really food is our baseline. It's how we establish our energy for every day. Food oftentimes can be treated as medicine, but we fail to realize that in our hyper pharmaceutical society that says you have to take a pill in order to feel better about your life or about a certain illness or ailment that you are dealing with. If you look at throughout all of human history, food has always been treated as medicine, to the contrary. And the food that you eat today, the habits that you make today about what you are consuming, sets you up for a lifetime of either health and wellness and a strong baseline, or disaster with health issue after health issue after health issue. And one of the biggest ways that I've decided to prioritize this in my own life is eating more meat, eating more protein, because I was not consuming enough protein at all, except for in the last several months. And as hard of a chore as it can be to sit there and convince yourself that you need more protein, especially when you're used to eating really small portions, mostly carbohydrates or mostly fruits and veggies, it's a really different consumption process. If you can get to that point, you will have more energy, you will feel more likely to work out, you're going to have all kinds of better processes going on in your body, especially with your hormones, particularly for men, by the way. But I have felt a noticeable difference since prioritizing meat in my diet and more protein in my diet, but also in understanding what meat I am eating and where it is coming from. I had heard a little bit here and there about Good Ranchers over the last several years and had actually received a free box from them, I think in 2021, and ate the whole box. It was amazing. I absolutely loved it. At the time, Brock was just my boyfriend. He wasn't my fiance. And he commented on how you can literally taste the difference of this meat versus everywhere else. But we lost touch for a while. I ended up coming back to a conversation with them the other day and was so excited about inviting on their founder and CEO to the stream, because this has been a topic you guys have been requesting, to talk about why sourcing American meat matters and what's really going on behind behind the scenes in the meat industry. The more I have researched this, the more questions I have, and I know you guys will have so many questions as well. So I am very, very excited for our guest on the stream today. He is an unbelievably busy man, as I'm sure you can imagine. So I actually pre-recorded this conversation with Ben a few hours ago. It was very hard to get some time in his schedule, but we are very grateful that he has taken some time out of his day to talk to us about what's going on with Good Ranchers. If you haven't heard of them, they're a phenomenal company, and I'll tell you more about my experience with them on the other side of our conversation. But also pulling back the curtain here a little bit about what's truly happening behind the scenes and demystifying some things with the American food industry and meat in general. So, without further ado, I would love to welcome the founder and CEO of Good Ranchers, my personal favorite meat company, and many of you guys as well, Ben Spell, to the stream. Ben, thank you so much for joining us on the stream today. We are all huge fans of Good Ranchers and talk about your business all the time on the live stream. But for those who might not be familiar with you or the company, can you give us just a brief intro into all things Good Ranchers?
Sure. Yeah, thanks for having me today. Excited to talk all things meat with you. My name is Ben Spell. My wife and I started Good Ranchers about 5 years. Yeah, 5 years, a little over 5 years ago, 2018, and completely. I say this. I don't like to just throw this out there because, but it just is what it is, and it's the truth. It was completely following the voice of God, and I was a worship pastor at a church in Houston. I thought God's plan for me and Coralie was to start a church. That's what we had been talking about. That's what I'd been talking to her about. And one day I came out of the bathroom. I was getting ready for the morning, and I come out and I said, I think God just told me to start a meat company, thinking she would thinking she would do what you just did and go, that's crazy. What are you talking about? You don't know anything about meat or agriculture or anything. You've never even started a business. I thought the plan was to start a church. What do you like? I thought she would have all these questions. And I don't know if it's because she just could feel the level of conviction of what I said when I said it, because it really was like a Damascus Road experience, if you know what that is, or a burning bush type of moment, depending if you're New Testament or Old Testament. But she looked at me right in the eyes and she said, if you heard God, then I trust you. And that was it. So there was no questioning her. She just put the onus really back on me. I learned a few years later that was actually probably the best thing that she could have done, because it's she just gave me her full support, and then it's up to me. Like, hey, if you heard God, then go. So we started that was in 2017, end of 2017. Started in 2018, and when we started, it was me selling meat out of the back of a truck in a parking lot in Waco, Texas. We had just had our first baby boy in October or September of 2017, and she was home, kind of taking care of the house, raising our baby, helping with social media, and I was under a tent in a parking lot in a truck. And fast forward a few years later, and we've got dozens of trucks, and we're in dozens of cities and traveling around. And COVID happened in 2020, which is crazy that was 3 years ago.
I know. I can't even believe we blinked and we're here now, almost 4 years later. That's crazy.
Wow. Yeah. COVID happened, and the plan was always to use the trucks, use these like farmer market type pop-up shops, and to build a brand and eventually get online. COVID happened, and we said, we got to get online now. And so we figured it out and started shipping and selling. And about a year and a half after doing selling trucks and doing our pop-up shops, We cut all of that out and went fully online at the beginning of 2022, which was just last year, and um, we've seen so much growth, and um, with growth comes challenges,
Mm-hmm.
but we've seen so much growth. We've just been so blessed along the way, and it's mostly because, or it's mainly because people want to know where their food is coming from. People want to be able to trust the source in which they're getting their food from, and we thought that I'm a millennial. You're Gen Z, right?
I sure
Okay.
am. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So I feel like we, the millennials, um, kind of started building the bridge um, to what you guys are now either on or have walked across of, the government's not actually doing for us what they're supposed to be doing. We put these organizations in decades ago, like the FDA and
Mm-hmm.
the USDA, and my parents, which would be like your grandparents, they were just blindly trusting these government organizations because what they were supposed to be doing is making sure that food was safe for the masses and transparent, and we're going to make you label things so there can be transparency. We're going to make you label things so you can know what you're getting, except that just completely isn't how it went. Like, it's just not how it went. And where there's so much misleading in labels. There's no source of truth. There's no country of origin labeling law for beef or for pork, so it can literally come from anywhere in the world, it's being sold in the grocery stores. It's being sold in restaurants, but and it's you have no idea where it's coming from. It can have an American flag sticker on it. It can say "Product of USA," and it can been born, raised, and harvested in Mexico or South America or
Wow.
all the way across the world. So yeah, so I said that to say we've seen a lot of growth because our mission has been from the beginning when we found out that there was no country of origin labeling law, um, which is funny because we had already sold a lot of meat. We started in 2018, and um, we learned this in about a year and a half in, somewhere around 2019. Toward the end of 2019 is when we really started realizing all of the labeling issues, all of the misleading claims in the market. And so we drew a line in the sand and said, no, we're going to only support American farms and ranchers. We're going to only sell things um, that align with our values. And if we wouldn't bring it into our home, Corley, my wife, is um, I don't know if people still use the word crunchy, but she's pretty crunchy.
We do, and it has a positive connotation now. So there you go.
Okay, okay, yes. Anyway, she once we had kids, we've always been very health conscious and things like that. But once we started having kids, she got like really serious about reading labels
Mm-hmm.
and um, going beyond the label and looking for transparency. And so we decided that with Good Ranchers, we're not going to sell anything we wouldn't bring into our own home, feed to our own kids, and put into our own bodies. And you would think that's the way it should be, and it's actually harder than you would think it is as well because the yeah sourcing is something we could spend a whole lot of time on, but
Yeah.
just at a high level, there's no transparency from the USDA, like at all. There's loopholes after loopholes with even with what organic means, with like um, with like antibiotic use, hormone use. Like there's so many just loopholes, and so many companies are just greenwashing their labels with
Hmm.
claims like all natural, which literally means absolutely nothing, because if it came from an animal, it happens to be natural, and
Hmm.
that's what the USDA deems as all natural, that it came from a real animal. Which I'm curious to see with the lab grown stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if it can get an all natural. Um,
Probably. Yeah, we're going to talk about that here in just a second, but I'm glad you're bringing all of this up because I have so many questions to ask you about, generally speaking, what we don't know. You bring up a lot about how the American consumer doesn't know what they don't know on purpose because so many of these government agencies really aren't doing their job exposing us to where things are coming from, how different meat products have been raised or harvested. You guys at Good Ranchers provide 4 major categories of meat. You've got beef, pork, chicken, and seafood, wild-caught seafood. And poking through on your website, I think it's so interesting seeing the comparison between what you guys are offering as a company for each one of those categories and what, generally speaking, is on the market when you go to the grocery store or you go to a big box store and you pick up a label that might say organic or all natural or safe to eat or even product of the USA. So let's start with that organic label. What
Yeah.
does that actually mean? If I'm walking across the street to my grocery store to go pick up some organic chicken, can I trust that that's generally a healthier product than anything right next to it? And what does that word mean?
Yeah. So, or I feel like they started the organic label with good intentions. I honestly do, and I could, that could just be me being naive or gullible, but I feel like it was started with good intentions. But just like anything, once money starts getting involved, and once corporations realize that, oh, people will pay more for this, so when profits become the the pursuit, then quality usually begins to suffer. It's
Yeah.
just, and that's a conversation you can have all the way through, all the way to big pharma and vaccines. Like, I really do believe they were started with good intention, but once man gets involved and
Mm-hmm.
profits, and we start, okay, well then how do we maximize those profits? So with organic, I do believe that it was started um, uh, for the right reasons, but corporations come in and realize that people will pay more for that. Okay, they'll pay more for that label. Well, then how can I continue to get that label, but um, get as much profit from the raising side of it as possible? And so on the chicken side, we figured out, by we, I'm sorry, I said we don't do it. Um, the reason I said we is because I'm in the industry, and so I do take some ownership of the industry, but um, the industry figured out that you can, um, to get the organic label, it's really about just what you feed them. As long as you feed them organic feed
Hmm.
and give them access to the outside, then they can still get the organic, um, that organic label. So you have
Really?
these massive chicken um, facilities, chicken farms, where they never go outside, but they have access outside, which is just a little 24 by 24 hole all the way down at the end of the pen. And but you're shoving food at them constantly, so there's no reason for them to go outside. They don't go
Hmm.
outside, and then to take it a step further, um, almost all of the organic chicken feed, gosh, it's well over 70% of the organic chicken feed used in the US. It's coming from third world countries, it's coming from overseas, it's coming from these other places. And the only thing that makes it organic is over there, they sign an affidavit saying that they adhere to the organic standards. No one's checking it. No one's like, if you can Google organic chicken feed scam or organic chicken feed lawsuits. There's lots of them, because the only thing that makes it organic feed is that somewhere across the world they signed an affidavit saying that they adhered to these standards. Put it on a barge, ship it over, and that's what we're feeding the chickens that get the organic label, and that's what's being sold in the grocery store. And that's why you can taste. I will put our chicken against any organic chicken in the grocery store. You can taste the difference. And our chicken doesn't. We don't have an organic label. No antibiotics ever, which is very, very important. But when you actually allow chickens to go outside and let them rummage and eat and forage and do the things that they're supposed to do, then you can't guarantee
Mm-hmm.
every single thing that they ate. You can't speak for that. But when they live in a pen their whole life and you just shove them organic feed, Well, then, yeah, here, this is organic. Um, so yeah, the, the massively important thing with chickens is you want them to be able to not just have access outside, you want them to be able to actually uh, eat and
Go
uh,
outside, get fresh
go outside
air.
and move and do the things that they're supposed to do, and then you still want to feed them quality feed, and you never want to use antibiotics ever on chickens. I mean, there's a 6 week um, 6 week life cycle from hatch to harvest. If you're having to use antibiotics with chickens, then that facility has to be just disgusting.
Hmm. How about beef? You mentioned product of the USA and why that's really misleading several times. If we're going to the grocery store and buying hamburger patties or a steak to eat for dinner on Friday night, how can we be reliably sure where it came from, or can we? And what percentage do you think of meat in the beef industry in America is imported?
Well, this year we will import over 3 billion pounds of red meat, of beef, just beef, into the U.S. And it's a lot of that goes to fast food.
Huh.
So um, a lot of that goes to fast food restaurants. A lot of it goes to restaurants in general, but the bulk of it goes to the grocery store, and um, and a lot of what's being sold online. We're one of the only, um, and we were definitely the first, as far as a nationwide online meat company to make the stand and to make the claim of American only. But all of the major players, they're importing from overseas. They're importing from South America. They're importing from all over the world. And sometimes I name names, sometimes I won't. But uh, if you think of a major of a major online meat company right now, um, if it's not Good Ranchers, they're importing their beef.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, what was your question again?
What does that look like for market share? Like what percentage is imported versus harvested here?
Yeah, so it's about 85% of the grass-fed beef is imported.
85%? Why do we not know that?
I don't know because
Wow.
and this was a very silent thing that happened. There was country of origin labeling laws up until 2015 in the United States, and for it's crazy because you the clothes we're wearing say what country they were made in. Like this, I'm holding a pen, and somewhere on this pen it's going to say where it was made. Everything has a country of origin label, and but beef and pork, it was just silently removed in 2015 at the lobbying. The U.S. government was lobbied.
Huh.
Um, the two biggest um, beef producers in the world, in the U.S. naturally, but also in the world, are Brazilian-owned companies, and South America raises a lot of beef, and so those companies lobbied the U.S. government, paid millions and millions and millions of dollars, because if you go into the grocery store and it says product of Uruguay or product of Brazil or product of Mexico, um, people aren't going to buy it. Like,
Hmm.
and these studies have been done. Like there was one that was actually just done this year, and it was like 93% of Americans um, would would pick a product of USA over product of anywhere else when it comes to meat.
Which is
And
hardly like a controversial choice to make. Obviously, that makes sense to me. So you think this was entirely motivated by business and profit?
absolutely, yeah, absolutely, because you, me, and everyone else, when you go to the grocery store, you're gonna pick product of USA, and they changed it to where as long as it's processed in the U.S., so they're born, raised, harvested somewhere else. They're meaning they're slaughtered somewhere else,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'll basically they'll break up the components into the primals, put them on a barge, ship them over, import them, and they'll go into a USDA facility to be cut into steaks or ground into hamburger meat, or roast or whatever. And then as long as they're, that last cut, it happens in a USDA facility, they can get a USDA sticker put on them, and you can call it product of USA, and put an American flag sticker real big on it. It's the
Hmm.
most misleading thing in the grocery store.
Easily. I mean, that feels not even misleading. That's just a lie. That's like illegal to me, but it's not. And I hate that that happened so recently, and very few people even know that that's going on behind the scenes. But I'm hardly surprised. The lack of transparency across the board in our government really exists that way. Switching gears a little
Correct.
bit, I've noticed
Yeah.
more so since I've been in college, so in the last 10 years or so, than any other time in my life, that all of the so called health experts in our society seem to be pushing this anti meat and almost anti protein agenda. Everything to be healthy is all plant based. And if you go to the healthy takeout food options, it's all salads, all plant based, very little protein options. Obviously, we're seeing that with meat alternatives in plant based meat with Beyond Burgers or the leading egg substitute companies. Why do you think that's happening now behind the scenes? And what do people really need to know about plant based alternatives to meat that they might not be aware of?
Yeah. I think it's happening because that I think they want to make us weaker. I think there's a couple of things here. I'm going to touch back on the country of origin labeling for just 1 second,
Yeah.
but it ties in. I think that if you can, whoever controls food controls the people, plain and simple. And that's a tale. You can go all the way back to the Old Testament, to Egypt, when there was a famine, and Israel, uh, uh, Egypt was able to store food because there was a famine coming. Egypt stored, and then all of the surrounding countries had to come to Egypt for food. Israel being one of them. And then fast forward a few generations, and now all of Egypt is enslaved to the
Mm-hmm.
people who had the food, who were originally helping them because, oh hey, we have food. And then you again go just a few generations, and Israel was enslaved to these people.
Yeah.
If you control the food, you control the people. And there's been a massive push to control the food supply. And for whatever reason, I can't understand it, but in the US, we've been giving up control of our food supply. Um, uh, uh, Again, 3 billion pounds of beef will be imported from other countries, and sold in our stores, in our restaurants, and sold online. So, moving a little further, how do you make people weak, especially men weak? Don't feed them meat. Uh, if meat is essential for amino acids, creatine, vitamins, protein that men need to produce testosterone, to you need for healthy brain function. Men and women need that. But I think consuming less meat. I mean, look at the statistics. I don't know if you've ever done it on your show, but lots of people have been talking about this. I mean, as men, are this generation, your generation of boys and men, uh, are producing less testosterone
Mm-hmm.
than ever before, and then and all the things that go along with that. I think that to some degree, it's we're weakening our nation. We're weakening, and is it intentional? Probably, because some there's powers that be
Yep.
somewhere somebody's making decisions and has a plan. And yeah, if we eating meat is essential to human development. It's crazy that even scientists, I've already said that I'm a Christian, so um, but as I state these facts, like science says that we evolved when we started eating meat. Like, like that's just like history or biology or whatever subject they teach that in school. It's been a while for
Mm-hmm.
me, but like the whole thing of evolution is when we started introducing meat and we started eating meat. That's what allowed our brains to develop and grow and give us strength to be the top of the food chain. And you fast forward to now, and we're saying don't eat meat. I also think that it's this is an observation of mine. And I don't know how many people pay attention to it or not, but for whatever reason, American cows are worse than
Yeah, they're
cows in
evil and
Brazil.
everybody else is fine. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's like everything in America. If it's American, it's bad. But but it's don't eat meat. Cows are bad for the planet. Cows are
Hmm.
bad for you. And but we're gonna make this synthetic blend of soy and all these other things that if you look at the side by side comparison of like Beyond Meat or the what's the other one, Impossible Burger,
Yeah,
and the ingredients in dog food, you can't tell which one is which. And I
that freaks
challenge
you
anybody
out.
to look it up.
Whew.
Yeah,
Wow. I mean, the ingredient list we talked about the other day on the stream in a different conversation, but that alone is just enough to freak anybody out, in my opinion. If you're looking at a list of 20 plus ingredients that you can't pronounce for a burger versus one ingredient of meat, that should tell you everything you need to know about what's going to be healthier for you. But this push to just, you're right, like demonize or make evil meat just continues to get crazier and crazier in the news cycle with the media and with politicians. And we saw a groundbreaking announcement from the FDA a few months ago introducing the first ever approval for lab grown meat now, for chicken specifically, but I'm sure it will expand here very soon in America, where they're going to take stem cells and turn stem cells into a chicken breast that you can go buy at the grocery store. It
yeah.
seems really unclear whether or not, like the country of origin labeling, we'll even know if something was grown in a lab if you're at the grocery store or a restaurant. What are you hearing about the lab grown meat industry expanding, working in the meat and agriculture industry? And is this something we should be concerned about?
Yeah, I think we should be very concerned about it. It's I know that the biggest meat producers are actually funding the lab grown meat. So the Tyson
Mm-hmm.
is an owner, and I think you can kind of go down the list of all of these big players that started with a decade ago removing country of origin labeling. They're all funding this lab grown meat. A lot of them were involved with the Impossible and the vegan side of the plant based is what I was trying to say, the plant based side, and now they're funding uh, the synthetic lab grown meat as well. So I can tell you this: if there's a way to not have to label it, and if there's a way to label it misleading the public into thinking that it's real, they will.
Mm-hmm.
And our track record has proven that. Um, yeah, I don't think people want it. I mean, I know, I bet most of your listeners don't want it, but
Certainly, yeah.
I'm I'm actually very interested to see what happens with it. Um, I think it's really going to come down to do they have like how do they get to label it?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and because on the plant based burger side, um, it's crazy that they can put a cow on the label and call it like the way they put them even in the grocery store. I've seen it before where um, I've never bought it, but looking at it, thinking, man, I bet a lot of people just are looking for burgers. They're in the frozen section looking for IQF, and they go, oh, okay, this looks good because
Mm-hmm.
it's got a cow. Like Beyond Beef, I think, is the one that has a cow as their logo, and they just put burgers really big and leave like yeah. So um, yeah, so I know a lot of people buy it by mistake just
Mm-hmm.
because people have a lot of other things to do. You shouldn't have to be reading and you shouldn't have to be doing so much work at the grocery store making sure, wait, is this beef or is this not beef? And that's on the plant-based side. So yeah, the synthetic meat side of it, yeah, I'm very concerned and very curious to see how they're going to be able to label it. And but if I was guessing, I would guess that they're going to figure out a way to label it where it's very misleading, and a
Yeah.
lot of people just buy it thinking that it's actually chicken.
I doubt they'll put test tubes and petri dishes on their labels. They too will probably have animals on the label and call it
Yeah.
all natural, which will make it very difficult for us to decipher that. One of the things I love most, Ben, about Good Ranchers is how intentional you are as a company in supporting not just American based farms and ranchers, but small, local, independent farmers and ranchers, which has never been more important, especially as we see the CCP and very powerful billionaires like Bill Gates buying up millions of acres of farmland. Can you explain to us why supporting a local farm and ranch that's independent from any bigger conspiracy or industry that's going on is so important?
Yeah, they're the backbone of our country. Like, plain and simple. This country was built by farmers, by ranchers, um, and we're just casting them by the wayside with no regard to generations of legacy of ranching and farming. Um, we're just completely disregarding all of that in effort to make more money, in effort to make more profit, in effort to be more sustainable, or all the the claims that go along with it. Um, since the country of origin and labeling law was removed, um, about 20,000 independent ranches go out of business every single year. Um,
Wow.
yes, and a lot of these have been generational, passed down. And I was visiting one of our ranches back in March or April this year, and it was heartbreaking listening to some of the stories of how hard it is for them just to survive. Like they don't do it. They're not doing it for the money. They're doing it
Hmm.
just because it's their way of life, and all they want to do is provide. They just want to put food on their family. They love living out in the country and living off the land, and all they want to be able to do is continue to raise their animals and raise their family. And it's just they're just getting squeezed out by every penny, nickel, and dime, because they can't compete with the billions of pounds being imported,
Mm-hmm.
and just um, undercutting them on at the auction. Um, yeah, so there's about 700,000 independent um, cattle ranches in the U.S., which is still a good number, but we have to have conversations like this. We have to let people know, hey, just because you're buying meat at the grocery store, or even online, doesn't mean that you're supporting
Mm-hmm.
the American supply chain. It doesn't mean that you're supporting American farms and ranches. Uh, and in that 700,000 independent ranches that are there, that are still in existence today, that makes up about 20% of the world's beef. And the average, I know that's right. These are good stats. And the average herd size in that 700,000 is about 50. That's what, like, people have this idea that there's these massive farms or these
Mm-hmm.
massive ranches where they have thousands and thousands of heads. I mean, there's some of that, but of the 700,000 independent ranches in the U.S., the average herd size is about 50. And the one I was telling you about, the ones that we partner with, the one I was at this in April, they think they have about 65 head, and they they take care of them, they breed them, they feed them, they're out there with them every single day and through the winter. This particular ranch is in Idaho, and they had a brutal winter
Mm.
this past year, and they were telling me that in February they knew they had some calves being born, calves being born every day, but they were expecting some and they didn't come that day, and so they were staying up to the night waiting for the calves to be born. And by the time they got out, it was snowing so bad by the time the calves were born and they were able to get out and find them, um, that they were just, their eyes were frozen shut. They were like, their ears were just everything, like frostbite was already starting to set in. And they took these two calves, brought them into their living room, put them by the fireplace,
Hmm.
and put blankets on them. Right. This is the kind of animal raising that people don't hear about. And because the media has done, especially the 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 anti-meat, so like the vegan activists, the
Yeah.
plant-based activists, those kind of things, they just shed this light of like factory farming and this, and it's bad, it's bad, it's bad. What they'll never do is show you these ranchers that are going out into the field at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, finding the babies, bringing them into their own living room, putting blankets on them, and putting them by the fireplace,
Hmm.
to make sure that they live through the night. And so they were telling me this story, and I was sitting in their living room, and he's like, "Yeah," he's like, "This winter was so bad," and he's like, "We thought those calves, we really thought they weren't going to make it." But we woke up the next morning and they were just running around the living room, going back to the field. And I got to see them. Like I got to see them. They were a little older and running around. And those are the stories people don't hear. And that's the backbone of America, the farming, the ranching, the agriculture community that we've built in the last hundreds of years. It's still alive. It still exists, and we have to support it. Like we have to support it because if we don't, it's going to go away, and that would be devastating to a lot of families.
It would, and devastating to our country as a whole, our culture, our food supply, really across the board. In our last couple minutes, Ben, I would love to ask you one really fun question. We talk a lot on my stream about how to support businesses that share your values. We do a lot of work with Public Square, and we've had many other CEOs and business owners on the stream to talk about this really important subject. As our world continues to become more and more divided, more upside down, and more confusing or misleading when it comes to the products that you're buying, can you talk us through why it's so important to be supporting every industry, businesses that share your values, and what the values of Good Ranchers are in our incredibly confusing upside down world?
Yeah, sure. I think it's, well, you are what you eat. And so to some degree, you are where you shop at.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm going to flip your question though just around a little bit. As a business owner, uh, as a Christian business owner with conservative values, um, I don't think I think that we need more businesses. I think more Christians need to be starting businesses and not um, and letting their values flow through that. I don't think we need more businesses starting based on values, because if you start a business off of your values, the quality might not be there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then in turn, like your listeners, people want to try it, but at the same time, if you're going to spend your hard-earned money on something, like values only get you so far. The quality of the product is what people are actually looking for. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
with Good Ranchers, we never set out to be a values-based company. Our values are just an overflow of who we are. Like I said, I was a pastor before this, and I just knew one thing when it came to my values. Um, and we didn't set out to be a conservative Christian company. In fact, I wouldn't label us as that. Those are my values, me and Corley as the founders and the owners. But we want to sell meat to anybody who wants meat, and our first quality is our business plan. Quality is the first thing that we're looking for, and so I would say this to anyone who's listening who's thinking about starting a business. Yes, we need businesses, and we need businesses that support. We need people to start businesses that have strong values, strong beliefs, and aren't afraid to let those shine through their business. But first and foremost, we need businesses that have an amazing quality to whatever they're providing, and let your values be an overflow of that. But yes, it's very important. We love Public Square, and and I don't know how many. I mean, they're growing so fast, which I think there's hundreds, if not thousands, of businesses on there now. We were pretty early in the adoption there, and love that partnership. But I will say this to any business owner or someone who's thinking about starting a business: start it with quality. Don't just lead. Don't lead with your values. Lead with your product. Lead with your quality and your product, and let your values be an overflow from there. That's my opinion. People can do whatever they want to do, but in our world, when it comes to meat, no matter how much our values are, if we send it to you and you don't like it, and you go, man, this tastes like crap, well, right? It doesn't matter what our values are. You want to be able to feed quality food to your family. So yeah, I don't know
Absolutely.
if I really answered your question or not, but
no, actually, I couldn't agree more. And as somebody who has tried many of your Good Ranchers products, I can say that the quality is through the roof. I hate buying meat anywhere else now because you really can tell the difference, as you mentioned earlier. Ben, I am so excited that our audience got a chance to meet you today and learn a little bit more about Good Ranchers. In our last minute or so, can you tell us any new exciting things right around the corner for the company that you are looking forward to?
Holiday hams.
Woohoo!
Yeah. We got a couple of new product lines coming for this fall, that we're super excited about. We're doing bone-in spiral hams, glazed hams for that's going to be coming out in just a couple weeks. Super excited about that. We're doing a bacon butter. Say it again.
Yes.
Yeah. It's super excited about that. And then, just continuing to grow. We've the other side of what I didn't even think about when we started a business, one, because I wasn't really thinking about starting a business, but the people side of what we do, and the way that we get to affect people's lives, not just our customers, but employees and vendors, and the jobs that we get to provide. As we continue to grow, I'm even more excited about that opportunity growing, and we're on pace for a really big year next year, and very excited about the people side of what we get to provide, jobs for not just our employees but all of our vendors, and by vendors I mean that's from people raising the animals, people harvesting the animals, processing, packaging, shipping, all of that, and to be able to do that and give people a healthy work environment to work in, it's really one of the most fulfilling things. As a business owner, it's the most fulfilling thing that we can do. So looking forward to continuing to do that, and with people like you and your show and your listeners, with y'all's support, we continue to do what we're doing.
So very powerful. Ben, thank you so much for taking some time out of your very busy schedule to join us on the stream today. We will definitely have to have you back, and we're going to send lots of people over your way for all of the new exciting products here in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. Thanks, Isabel.
We love Ben. We stan Ben. We stan Good Ranchers. I have loved reading all of your guys' comments in the chat throughout our conversation there. I could not tell you in more clear language than what I'm about to say how much I love Good Ranchers. Like, truly, you can taste the quality difference from the first bite with the food that you eat. You can tell how much they love supporting the independent farms and ranchers that they get to work with all over the United States. And there's just such a cultural difference between going to the grocery store and picking something out that you have literally no idea where it came from. You have no idea where it's being raised. You have no idea how it was harvested. You have no idea what quality of life that animal had, versus knowing with 100% certainty where your products come from. They tell you in every box that you get delivered to your house from Good Ranchers. You can go on their website and research all of the farms and ranches that they support and get to know each one of those families, like the one that he told that story about with the cows in the living room, which I just love. I love that story so much. And knowing that you are helping a company that is impacting individual people's lives every single day makes you feel so much more proud of what type of food that you are consuming. It is just a total game changer. And I hope that Good Ranchers inspires tons of other similar spin-off businesses in different areas of the food industry, because they very clearly are making a difference in American culture. And I have to just tell you, it is worth a try. My fiance and I absolutely love their products, and especially as inflation continues to go out of control when it comes to meat in particular, it's a really great financial decision to be supporting companies like Good Ranchers as well. They have a really interesting blog that Good Ranchers puts out on the internet every single day called Good Bloggers. You should look it up, but it's on their website. And they just recently put this out the other day about the meat inflation projected for 2024 and just how truly terrible it is. There's a new report from GRO Intelligence saying that beef in particular is headed for a huge supply shock next year, which is probably going to result in extremely higher prices. Beef prices in particular of all kinds of meat are set to soar in 2024, largely because of a huge shortage of beef. And if we're importing 85% of our beef that we consume in America from other countries, it's a huge problem if other countries are having a supply issue, and why we need to be supporting more American farms and ranches, which is exactly what you do through Good Ranchers. But in 2024, we're supposed to lose about 2 billion pounds of meat, a 6.5% decrease from the current year that we have circulating in the meat industry. It's the lowest per capita availability of beef in the United States since records began in 1970. So they are projecting some really crazy price spikes and increases if you go to the grocery store or Costco or just like your average neighborhood supermarket to buy beef in particular. One of the best ways to make sure that you can financially be providing meat for your family is to buy it in bulk through subscription programming, just like Good Ranchers. If you've never used Good Ranchers or you're a little bit unfamiliar with what they operate like as a company, I'm going to take a second really quick at the end of the stream and walk you guys through it, because I think just a hands-on experience is a little bit more helpful so that you guys don't go into all of this stuff blind. First and foremost, you can check out all of their products at goodranchers.com/shop. I'm dropping all of that in our live chat right now so that you guys can pull this up in another tab. And they were extremely generous with me today when we did this interview and gave me a discount code for you guys to use. So you can get $30 off your first box if you're interested in trying these products. The discount code is literally just my name. It's Isabel, Isabel, in all caps. And that's all in the video description of this stream as well. But if you go click on the link I just dropped in our chat or go to goodranchers.com/shop, you can meet your meat, if you will. And they have tons of different boxes, like truly everything you can possibly imagine. Their classic box is what we usually get. It's chicken and steak and ground beef and usually some bacon in there as well. And it's all packaged for bulk pricing. So all of the food that you're getting is wildly less expensive in the big box that you get that will feed you for like several months. We've had ours for several months versus what you get at the grocery store and how marked up everything has been because of inflation. They just put out their newest release has been a wild caught seafood box. They've got shrimp and multiple kinds of fish. They have a strictly just burger box, especially if you're into tailgating this fall, great place to start. They have a beef oriented box, a chicken box, just chicken in a different sense with different cuts, a family feast. They have a pork box alone with all just pork products. They have a prepper kit if you're really wanting to go way out there and stock your freezer with as many individual meat products as possible. That is a great place to start. But their subscription base is how we like to buy our meat from Good Ranchers, and is a great way to make sure that your freezer is always stocked, that your pricing is locked in. They do a lot of specials and promos where your pricing is locked in for like the next year on certain products, which is unheard of in the food industry, especially in the midst of such crazy rampant inflation. And as Ben mentioned, they have all kinds of really, really exciting new products that they're rolling out for the holidays with hams and their bacon butter, which sounds freaking amazing. Like literally so much stuff. You guys are going to absolutely love it. Could not recommend it enough and highly, highly, highly suggest that you guys check them out. Not just to keep supporting companies that share our values, but also to take responsibility for knowing where your meat comes from, what you are putting in your body, and making sure that you are prioritizing your health above all else, because that is hugely, hugely important in our extremely unhealthy, getting exponentially more unhealthy society. We are going to jump over to locals here in just a second for our post-game Q&A, as I'm sure you guys want to join us. I'm dropping the link right now for you, chat. And as we are leaving the stream today, I want to say thank you so much to all of you who are helping us continue to grow this community. Do me a huge favor before you go and make sure that you like this stream. That could look like a little thumbs up button or a little heart. Make sure you ring the notification bell so that you always know when we are going live or uploading new videos. And most importantly, you guys know the drill. Smash that follow or subscribe button on YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, or Getter to make sure that we can continue growing our community. Please consider joining us over on Locals. You guys get access to content that only exists over there. We're working on an in-person IRL meetup for some time in the next few months, which will be very exciting. We're going to do a spooky season movie night next week on Locals just for our people in our Locals community, and you guys get to know each other quite a bit better than you do on any other platform, so I can promise you it's a great place to be. We're going to jump over there right now for our post-stream Q&A. Everybody else, YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, Getter, we will see you tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern for our stream. Locals, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.